Welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. Now, got a great question. I love this question. Do real estate investors need a business license? So, I'm going to tell you a pretty long story. My videos are about 10 minutes long. And then I'm going to answer the question at the end. So, I was in the mortgage business for 17 years. And for the first 11 years, things were going great and smashingly well. And a lot of people would argue too well, right? Because, we would look at each other and say, we don't say no to anybody. And I worked for a company that's still around, and we were careful. We didn't do stupid things. But in 2004, 5, and 6, Wall Street was just handing out money like it was candy. And they really weren't pricing in risk to it. So what that meant is that while someone who let's say had good credit and good income and could qualify for a loan would pay 6%, someone with crappy credit, no income, no job, no assets, would get 7%. That's not an accurate payment for risk, right? If the lender's going to take risk, then the lender should be given a much higher yield. And in general, the big problem at the time was that you didn't need to put any money down. So people could literally, go to contract on 25 different condos in a building with no income to qualify for it and no money to put into it. Minimal contract deposits, $100 each. So, and just speculate that the property price would go up before construction was done. That's a problem, right? Because what happened in the industry, in a nutshell, what happened in the real estate market in a nutshell is that a lot of that speculation led to people just walking away and prices dropping precipitously in 2008, 2009, right? Prices basically fell off a cliff. And I personally think Wall Street was to blame because they were giving out the money. I sort of, people say, the mortgage brokers were to blame because they made fraudulent loans. So my answer to that is if Exxon tomorrow came out with an amazing gas that they said gave 300 miles per gallon, and it cost 10 cents more, everybody would take it, right? And maybe they would be skeptical of it, but if an independent scientist said it works great, it's not going to hurt your car, it wouldn't be a problem. You couldn't blame the gas station owners for not selling that product because someone's going to sell it to the people that want it. Mortgage brokers on some level, some were shit. Like we would take loans sometimes from people who came to us and I said, what happened? They go, well, I went to this idiot mortgage broker and he didn't even ask me how much money I want to put down. I wanted to put 25% down. And we got to the closing and there was no money down. So there were idiots, right? A lot of those idiots went out of business quickly. But you can't blame the mortgage brokers really if Wall Street is providing this incredible liquidity and just giving people these loans. And if mortgage broker X said, I don't want to do 100% loan, somebody else will. And my company I work for, really, we didn't do 100% loans. One of the reasons why they're still around. And then independent science were the rating agencies, right? The rating agencies were rating these bonds, very, very A+, even though they were like D-. Because what happened for about 5 years is that the market kept going up so much, nobody defaulted on loans. They just sold the property at a profit. So they looked at how these new mortgage products with no income verification, no asset verification, no verifications at all, were performing, and they were performing well. They'd only been around for a couple of years, and they weren't defaulting. So they just kept giving stupid ratings. And the ratings agencies really screwed up, and Wall Street screwed up, right? And we sold a lot to the Swiss banks like Credit Suisse and UBS, and we sold some to Lehman and Bear Stearns, two companies that didn't make it through. But what happened after that was that they decided that the mortgage industry had to be regulated significantly more. And they created the CFPB, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which was a new unregulated division, and they were going to audit banks and then non-bank entities like mortgage bankers, which was what my company was. And I was at a pretty senior position there. We were the first or second non-bank entity to be audited. So they audited banks, and then they went to us, and they went to us right away. And they audited us, and there were new laws in effect, and we put them into place. And we had people there who were brand new in this new agency, right? Everybody there was new. It was newly created. And they really had no concept of what was right or wrong. They just had a concept of we want more. So I was at that audit, and people would say, well, this issue what are you doing? And we said, well, we have a chief compliance officer, and this is our policy. They go, okay, you need to hire an outside agency to audit that compliance officer. I'm like, okay, we'll do that. And then you need to hire a new person to audit that agency. So we had to audit the auditors. And it became clear to me that this agency and government in general really wasn't solving problems. They were just over-regulating and feeling like you just throw money and bodies at something that we've somehow done our job. And I hated that. And I only stayed a few years after that because I hate government regulation, which is one of the reasons why I left. Unfortunately, 5 years later, I stayed way too long. Well, this is three years later, because I can't stand over-regulation. I can't stand government regulation. One of the best things about being a real estate investor is there is almost no regulation. So what do I mean? So there's one state, Illinois, that requires you to be licensed if you are wholesaling, which means you're getting a property under contract and you're signing the contract. So there's only one state. Now, personally, I think in all 50 states, if you're doing this, you should be licensed, right? And I've gone through this many times, but I'll go through it again. The three main reasons why you want to be licensed if you're a real estate investor is A, access to the MLS, the multiple listing service. Now, you possibly can get that without being licensed if you know someone who's licensed and is willing to give you credentials, although that's illegal. But you want access to the MLS. That's the best way to comp property, certainly in my area. Number two is you want to be able to list your own property, so either to the retail trade, control that listing, but putting it out there and not paying someone money for it. And I used to do flat fee listings, and I can go through a whole nother discussion of why I don't think flat fee listings are good. So you want to control that listing, and in New York, for sure, you're allowed to list a wholesale deal. You're just not allowed to represent that you own the property. You have to list the owner as a contract vendee. That means I'm in contract, and I'm looking for cash buyers. It's perfectly legal, not a problem. So again, one, you want access to the MLS, the multiple listing service. Two, you want to be able to list your own properties, whether they're wholesale or retail or wholesale deals. And three is, if you really go on enough appointments, you're absolutely 1,000% going to come into contact with people who either A, just want to list, they didn't understand the concept of you buying, or B, should list, right? So I had a huge day this week where I made a lot of offers. I made like 11 offers in one day. And I think 4 or 5 of them were basically listings. I told the person, listen, if you want to, your house is in good shape, you're not in a rush, you should list it. I'll list it with you. I'll list it for you. I'll get you the most money. If you want a number that I can pay, it's going to be less. I'll give you that number. If it makes sense, you could sell it to me. I'm happy to buy it from you. But if you were my brother, I would tell you absolutely 100% you should list it. So that's going to happen. The idea that I am going to be able to disqualify out anybody who wants retail pricing is foolish. We have leads all the time that say they want full price, but they don't want to list. So at that point, you have to give them the option. So you should list. Now, if you're not licensed, I'm going to refer it to somebody who's going to give me a commission. I'm not into that. So again, I have a full-time dispositions manager, and he handles my listings. So I don't have to go sit at open houses, right? But you can be, if you're licensed, you can find some new agent and give him 25% of the commission instead of keeping 25% for yourself. There's a million new agents out there who will be happy to do all the work for you. So I think it's foolish to think that A, you're not going to come into contact with people who want to list, because I've gone to people after explaining to them that we buy properties, and they go, okay, where do we sign a listing agreement? And I bring listing agreements with me, and I'll sign it at the closing. To not take that listing is foolish. It's free money. But also the people who I go to, and I go, why wouldn't you list it? And they go, I don't know, we thought it was in terrible condition. I'm like, this is not terrible condition. This is great condition. And so there's a thinking in the industry that, well, you're going to take a buy where you're going to make more money to a listing where you're going to make less money. It's very rare that happens. Almost never. I mean, you want to do what's in the best interest of the seller. You have to solve their problem. It's foolish to think they're not going to know they can list. It's foolish to think, even if they're under the impression that they shouldn't list, that they won't figure it out eventually. Someone's going to talk to them about it. So I want to be that guy that makes money off that lead. So the answer is no. Real estate investors do not need a business license. Thank God. We don't need any license right now. If you're licensed, ironically, if you're going to be a realtor, you need a license. And there is some regulation on that. But as just an investor, I would say you don't need a license. You don't need a license to do it, but I recommend getting a real estate license because because of those 3 reasons that I just said. So you don't need one, but I recommend you get one. But even as a realtor, there's not that much regulation for a realtor. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you are interested in finding out more about a course I have that teaches how to do what I do, go to howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com. If you're interested in finding out more about one-on-one coaching I offer, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any channel, please click the thumbs up. And please keep the comments coming. I post 5 times a week. I don't always know what to say, so I appreciate the topics. You ask any question. No question is a problem. Doesn't even have to be about the video you're watching. I try to respond to all comments within 24 hours. If it's a simple answer, I'll reply with an answer. If it's something I've covered before, I will send you a link to a video. And if it's something new, I will do a new video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching.